Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, star of the Democrat Progressives, leader of the Squad, she doesn't tweet too much about vaccines or mandates, but she has issued several statements which shows that she is on the side of mask mandates and vaccine mandates. Another big story, the hypocrisy, is that she went down to Miami to party and she was seen maskless. When called out for the hypocrisy, she just said, Republicans want to date me or something, completely deflecting, and I gotta admit, masterful PR. AOC is really good at controlling narratives and putting out messages. She's really good at being a hypocrite and getting away with it because people are tribal. But this story is very important. I actually don't care too much to do these drama-style stories where it's like, aha, look what AOC has done. But this is more than just AOC. It's what the Democrats do. It's blue states that are pushing these mask mandates and these vaccine mandates. It is Democrats that are screaming about Omicron and saying things are getting worse. And it's typically Republicans saying no to the mandates, backing away from this stuff, and saying more so individual liberty. It's not absolute. There are certainly red states that have had their mask mandates. Many states that were run by Republicans over the past year had mandates, but now it's all kind of going away. Except now we have Omicron. There is a surge, again, of new cases. Some are saying that Omicron is very different. It's much less likely to land you in the hospital, but substantially more transmissible. And so we're going to see a lot of cases. And we are. One thing you need to understand about the surge in cases we're seeing right now is that it's tied heavily to the holidays. People went out to get tested. They're worried about people getting sick. And with all the testing comes reporting of a major surge. It's funny how that works, isn't it? Donald Trump pointed that out a while ago. I think it was over a year ago. And he said, if you stop testing, all this goes away. And a lot of people basically laughed like, yeah, so there's still COVID. You just don't know about it. And so the inverse is, or I should say that statement is actually true. If you're not looking for it, you don't find it. And over the holidays with people getting tested and these huge lines stretching out far and wide, we ended up with major surges reported across the country. The CDC has this image of the United States and it's just red. Completely across the board because, well, COVID is surging, or at the very least, we have more data showing there are many more cases. This has resulted in expanding mask mandates. Right where we are, where we work on this show at Timcast, we're on the border of Frederick County, which just implemented a nonsensical mask mandate, which I'll get into, later on in this segment. And we're seeing that in DC. We're seeing vaccine mandates across the board. And in many of these places, like New York City, for instance, they have vaccine mandates, but they also have mask mandates. So regardless of whether or not you're vaccinated, you got to be wearing your mask. And now things are getting crazier because at the state level, they have the mask or vax policy, which is basically you can require a vaccine mandate. Like your business can choose to enforce a vax mandate. And if you do, nobody's got to wear masks. But if you don't, everyone, regardless of vaccination status, has to wear masks. Mandates are on the rise, and Democrats have consistently been flouting their own rules and policies. For someone like AOC to claim to support these things, to promote Hochul, or however you pronounce her name, the new governor of New York, and say she's doing a better job than Ron DeSantis, but then go to Miami to vacation, not wear a mask, and then mock people who question this? Hypocrisy. And this is why the story is so important. Another example of people like AOC saying one thing and doing another. Now, you want to have an argument about vaccine policy or mask policy, by all means, we can do that. But the bigger problem to me is, are the politicians leading the charge being honest? When I see a Republican say, we shouldn't have mask mandates, and then refuse to wear a mask, I'll be like, okay, that's in line with literally their position. If AOC comes out and claims New York is doing a great job, better than Ron DeSantis in Florida, but then goes to Florida to party, she's lying to people. And this is why I left New York, because of, I view this as evil. I really do. It's not just being a bad person. It's actually extracting value. It's lying. It's harming people. It's destroying lives while you don't even believe in the causes you claim to support. But let's read through all this and break down what's going on. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com and become a member to help support our work. It's not just this video. It's all of our journalists working at timcast.com. You as a member help support that. We have tons of articles about a wide variety of issues. And as a member, you'll get access to the exclusive member segments of all of our shows, including the Timcast IRL podcast. But more importantly, your membership allows us to expand and hire more reporters, and that's what we're doing. But don't forget, like this video right now, subscribe to this channel, share this video right now with all your friends. Take that URL, post it wherever you can. It is the most powerful way to help call out the hypocrites in government and to support my work and the work we do at Timcast. But now, let's start with this story from the Daily Mail. And I'll break down exactly what AOC has said and why it's important we highlight the hypocrisy among prominent Democrats. AOC pays COVID lip service. Maskless squad leader gets huge kiss from Broadway star Billy Porter at packed Miami drag bar. Florida cases spike 940%. They say AOC, who has long been an advocate for mask wearing during the pandemic, was spotted partying in Miami on Sunday without a face covering altogether as she socialized with actor Billy Porter. Now, the Daily Mail also says the squad member has staunchly supported masks and vaccine mandates since the start of the pandemic. I want to address that because it does appear, I've got a tweet, AOC said that without mask mandates, people will lose their lives, and she very much supports this. She has praised the governor of New York's response to COVID and criticized Ron DeSantis, but I don't know if she's actually ever said anything in favor of vaccine mandates. In fact, I went through her Twitter account, not really hard to do, just scrolled down to July, did a quick search for vaccine, nothing comes up. So I don't know if she has a hard position on vaccine mandates, but it does seem that she's just, tacitly in line with the ongoing vaccine mandates. But we'll read more and I'll show you these tweets. They say the New York congresswoman, who has been in Miami since before the new year, appeared to be continuing her vacation in the Sunshine State at a packed drag bar event in the city. In a short clip posted to social media, Ocasio-Cortez could be seen waving to other bargoers to cheers and applause while being introduced on stage by the MC of the drag brunch event. The compeer could be heard lauding the politician, eliciting wild cheers from gathered diners. Ocasio-Cortez's presence in Florida, a state that she had long criticized for its lax coronavirus restrictions during earlier waves of the pandemic, appeared to irk some Republicans and conservative journalists who became tired of her using the southern state as an example of how not to do things. Quote, AOC is still lounging it up in Florida, in large crowds and maskless, this time at a drag queen bar in Miami. Rules for thee, but not for me, wrote right-wing journalist Brendan Leslie. For those of you with zero sense of humor, the whole point of this post is to expose hypocrisy. We don't actually care she's maskless. We care she fear-mongers about Florida, but then has the audacity to vacation here. AOC was spotted partying in a bar maskless in the great free state of Florida. Absolute hypocrite, wrote the account Libs of TikTok. Now, let me show you. We have these photos of her. She's having a good time. You know what? Good for her and good for everyone down here in Florida. But I find it really weird that there are so many progressives and Democrats in Florida not wearing masks. I don't get it. I really, really don't. Are they mad at Ron DeSantis for the way he's been handling things, or do they agree with him? Because you don't need a mask mandate to wear a mask. In fact, AOC herself has stated in the past, even if they remove the mask mandates, she may still wear them to protect others. Yet here we see that during a time when there are mask mandates and vaccine mandates in her state and her city, what does she do? She doesn't care for those policies when she's in Florida. Now, to be fair, she is vaccinated. She did get her booster shot. Yet she's not wearing a mask. Now, hold on there a minute. I've had many leftists say, so you're saying, Tim, that if you get vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask? Actually, no. In New York City, you have to wear a mask regardless of vaccination status. In Frederick County, in DC, in Chicago, in Philly, in all of these cities run by Democrats, even if you're vaccinated, you must wear a mask. So what changed now, Ocasio-Cortez? And this is a shout out to all the other Democrats, to Nancy Pelosi, to Whitmer, to Newsom, to Maxine Waters, to Fauci himself, to the Karen on the Delta airline flight who took her mask down to scream at a man because he wasn't wearing a mask. Yes, some people are just in a cult and they believe charlatans like AOC and Rashida Tlaib and all of them. Now let me show you some of her tweets and we'll break down the hypocrisy. So many people criticized her. And when people pointed out that she was maskless at a restaurant, now I actually want to push back on this. This initial story I think is kind of dumb. I'm not a fan. AOC is sitting at a table and she's not wearing a mask as she is drinking what appears to be some kind of martini. They also made fun of her boyfriend's feet. That was stupid. I don't care about her boyfriend or his feet. Grow up. I also don't care that AOC is not wearing a mask at a restaurant, because even in New York, you can take off your mask when you're sitting down at a restaurant. That being said, that policy is insane. If you're going to tell people they have to wear masks, regardless of vaccination status, because people are going to spread the droplets, then you need to be wearing a mask when you're sitting down eating too, and take it off and take a sip. In between sips, you can remove the mask just so you can put food and drink in your hole. Okay, how about that? No, the policy makes no sense. But let's be real. If AOC genuinely believes that policy makes sense, it's not hypocrisy for her to be dumb. So I don't really care that much that we see her at a restaurant not wearing a mask. That's normal, albeit stupid behavior. And also criticizing her boyfriend's feet, also really, really dumb. Now here's the thing. AOC was called out by Team DeSantis, who said, "Welcome to Florida, AOC. We hope you're enjoying a taste of freedom here in the Sunshine State, thanks to Ron DeSantis' leadership." And she said, "Hasn't Governor DeSantis been inexplicably missing for like 2 weeks? If he's around, I would be happy to say hello. His social media team seems to have been posting old photos for weeks. In the meantime, perhaps I could help with local organizing. Folks are quite receptive here." Ron DeSantis posted old photos. Why? Well, the official explanation is that I believe it was Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Eve. They have one set of family photos. It's a variety of different photos. Why? Because Ron DeSantis' wife has cancer and is undergoing chemo, and they didn't have the opportunity to take more than one photo, but ultimately, who cares? Seriously? And why has Ron DeSantis been inexplicably missing? Maybe he is missing. We were concerned about Joe Biden when he goes missing too. And then there's an explanation not having to do with DeSantis himself. His wife is undergoing chemo, and Governor DeSantis was accompanying her. I don't really care for any excuses as to why someone goes missing, because I don't agree with it. If you're going to criticize Ron DeSantis because if you're going to criticize a Democrat because they've gone MIA, and then you're going to excuse a Republican or vice versa. No. Look, at any point, any one of these individuals, left or right, could put out a tweet and be like, hey, taking care of some important family stuff. I really don't care for the whole someone's gone missing, right? And you know what? I'm not entirely sure if there, in this regard, I suppose my position is more so I understand why DeSantis may have gone missing, but I still think he should have been communicating with the public. I think that's fair to say. Meanwhile, however, we have this tweet from AOC, which gets to the point. I'd also be happy to share some notes from Governor Kathy Hochul's work in NY, since he seems to be in need of tips. You come down to Florida, you criticize Florida, and you don't want to be in your own state. There was a viral tweet that I shared where this guy in San Francisco was like, "That's it, we're moving to Florida." And then he said, "My family doesn't like, the politics here are worse. You're leaving California because it's decaying and falling apart, and then you want to go to Florida and disparage Florida. You know what? I am just sick of this." I like what Ron DeSantis has done to a certain degree. People have criticized him for his stance on BDS. I don't want to live in Florida. I'm not going to vacation in Florida. Florida's weather doesn't agree with me. It's just too hot. January and February are pretty nice. I got to tell you, though, the policies of Ron DeSantis as it pertains to social media censorship and COVID have been wonderful. The same is true for Texas. Florida's a little better. New Hampshire's pretty good, too. I chose West Virginia for a different reason. Underdeveloped. I think the opportunity is here in West Virginia, and to be completely honest, Florida and Texas, way too expensive. But I'm not going to go party over the weekend, New Year's Eve to Florida. I'm just not interested. AOC clearly is interested in that celebration. If she wants to claim that New York State and city have done a better job than Florida, why would she go down and then flout her own recommendations? Because they are liars. AOC said if Republicans are mad they can't date me, then they can just say that instead of projecting their sexual frustrations onto my boyfriend's feet. And this works for people. I don't know if it's like, Gen Z boomer socialists just don't care about substance and they like drama. Bravo. I don't care for that. I think it was really dumb that Steve Cortez circled her boyfriend's feet. That's stupid and worthy of criticism. And in that regard, I will defend AOC. You are allowed to criticize someone for pointing out your feet. Now do us a favor and answer the very serious question of, why do you think it's okay to have masks in New York, but you won't wear one in Florida at a time when the CDC says COVID is surging everywhere? This is CDC data that I'm showing here on the screen. You can see that almost entirely across the country, except for Northern California, red. They're saying the transmission level is very high. So AOC goes from New York, flies down to Florida with a slightly lower transmission level, but still considered high. There's some areas that are orange and yellow. So she puts the people of Florida at risk. Is that it? Because if AOC thinks these policies are good and that Ron DeSantis is in need of some guidance and organizing, then certainly she would go. She wouldn't travel because that can spread COVID. And if she did, she'd wear a mask to do it. No, they flout the rules. They don't care about them. Here's a tweet from AOC from March of this year. 93.2% of Texans aren't fully vaccinated. The state just endured one disaster worsened by selfishness and denial of basic science, and now conditions are being set for another. Repealing the mask mandate now endangers so many people, especially essential workers and the vulnerable. So let me ask you, AOC, at a time when Florida sees a near 1,000% increase in cases, what about that was appropriate? What about that made it appropriate for you to not wear a mask? Now, I want to be honest with you guys. I think mask mandates, for the most part, are insane. Masks, however, do work. If you are sick and you're spitting on people as you talk, it will stop the droplets from getting on our grandmothers. It's a joke, by the way, but it stops you from spitting on people, which can spread COVID. It won't stop aerosolized virus, meaning when it's in vapor, and it's not going to protect you for the most part, but I'm not going to pretend to be a scientist or anything. I look at a lot of these studies and I see that, and I see what happens is people on the right say aerosolized virus, therefore it doesn't work. And I'm like, but you're ignoring people can literally spit. And the left just blindly says it does work, ignoring the fact that it works in certain circumstances. If you want to have a mask mandate for your business, well, that's your business, I guess. But government mandated mask requirements, I'm not a fan of any of it. Because it just ultimately ends up insane. And I'll give you the example of what happened to me this past weekend. So me and my girlfriend go to a restaurant to get sushi. And we walk in, and it's a very small restaurant of only a few hundred square feet. And no one's wearing a mask. Just the staff are wearing masks, which is fairly typical of every restaurant in the area. West Virginia, Washington County, no mask mandates. Frederick County, mask mandate. So we live on the border. And we walk in and they're like, you need to wear a mask. Do you have a mask? And we were like, honestly, we don't, because there haven't been any mask mandates. And I was just like, I don't have one. I mean, nobody else is wearing a mask. And they were like, yeah, but they're sitting down. And I was like, okay, well, there's a table 10 feet in front of me. I was like, we'll just sit here. It's for two. And they just said, but you need to have a mask. And I repeated myself. No one in here is wearing a mask. Okay, like, I don't understand what you're trying to say. The guy with the menus, he says, the host or whatever, if you get up and walk around, you need to be wearing a mask. And I said, okay, then we'll just sit down. How does that sound? And he said, I will give you masks. And if you get up, you have to wear them. I said, works for me. You know, we'll put them on before we leave, I guess, but we can literally sit down instead of arguing. And then as he's getting the menus about to seat us, the people behind the counter say, put your masks on. And I was like, we're going to sit down, literally, right? It's like 10 feet, not even 10 feet. It's like 2 steps. And they said, no, you have to put it on now. And then I was like, our table's right there. Are you serious? And all the staff go, yes. And I'm like, you are insane. They're not doing this for any health reason. People sitting down at tables, not wearing masks, talking and eating and spitting out the droplets all over the place. That is insane. You want to talk about mandates for a record store or a bookstore or a jewelry store? Okay, I get it. You walk in, you're wearing a mask, you ain't going to spit on people. That will reduce transmission. Totally agree. Still don't like the mandate policy. But this is a border county. It's only a few minutes away that we said, we'll just go somewhere else. You're nuts. We could have just sat down and we didn't have to wear a mask. I don't understand that policy. It's insane. So we drove, got in the car, and only a few minutes later, we were eating sushi at a different restaurant. It was not hard. And the other restaurant, they were like, I don't know, doesn't make sense to us. It is the weirdest, most insane thing I have ever seen. And this is exemplified by people like AOC. She is the kind of person who enforces these policies, who calls for these policies, who champions these policies that don't make sense and then flouts them and goes to Florida, of all places. Ron DeSantis needs help from our governorship. And then she goes down there to party. Incredible. New York City has a mask mandate. Everyone, vaccinated or not, must wear a mask. When in a store, restaurant, or other public space where the owner or operator requires masks, at work, if required by employer, blah, 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 blah. We strongly recommend everyone, vaccinated or not, wear a mask in public settings. Okay, we get it. Sure. Public transportation, must wear a mask. School, healthcare, certain group residential facilities, at work, if required by your employer. Okay, so maybe what they're really saying is that only if businesses require it. Well, New York City has a vaccine mandate as well. I guess AOC doesn't really believe in what she said in the past. Like in May 15th of May, 2021, AOC reveals she's going to keep wearing a face mask despite being fully vaccinated and says some are going to take time adjusting as we feel comfortable. In a tweet, here's what she says. She says, by the way, if you want to keep wearing your mask, then do it. Personally, I'm going to keep wearing my mask in shared indoor public spaces like elevators, subway, grocery store, etc. New York City got hit so hard that I think some of us are going to take time adjusting as we feel comfortable. Okay, full stop. Okay, maybe AOC has seen the light. Her opinion has changed. She said, you know what? Maybe it was ridiculous to keep wearing this mask when the mandates were lifted. Maybe you should only wear them if you're mandated to wear them. All right. You know, look, I myself have had a change of opinion in the past. Many of my opinions have changed. You can easily pull up older videos of me and be like, haha, Tim said this about Trump then, but now he says this. Oh, yeah, my opinion's probably going to change a whole lot, especially as time goes on and new things develop and information changes. That's fair. Okay, AOC, I'll give you that one. Hey, wait a minute. I'm going to keep wearing my mask. So she changed her mind on wearing a mask even when mandates are lifted. But now she's still criticizing Ron DeSantis, and she's still supporting New York's policies by saying Hochul can give good advice on their leadership. In New York City, they have the VASC or mask policy. Vax or mask. It's funny. And they say basically 2.0, winter surge coming. NBC New York says Hochul extends mask mandate, debuts new surge plan as New York smashes case record again. Okay, AOC, if you've changed your mind on this one, please call out the governor instead of supporting her. They're not doing it. They're not going to. Now, over at CNBC, they say Omicron is not the same disease as previous COVID variants, Oxford University scientist says. I don't know what that means necessarily, but what they're saying is that it's more transmissible, and it's really transmissible. Like, everyone's expected to get this. New York is breaking records. The U.S. is breaking records. Everybody seems to be getting this. Have masks stopped transmission? No. Have they slowed it down? Maybe. I'll tell you this. There are many studies showing that it can slow the spread. People then point to Florida and say, aha, but Florida has no mandate, as exemplified by AOC, and they have been doing way better in terms of cases than many other states. And that may be true as well, but there are many factors involved. Weather, for instance, it's hotter in Florida, but also people in Florida with the warmer weather more likely to spend time outdoors. Perhaps. I actually don't know if that's true because it's so hot, but maybe, people go to the beach, they go to Miami Beach. And if that's the case, less opportunity for recycle there. It may actually have nothing to do with masks at all. It may have to do with are people outdoors more often. Seeing this major surge in New York makes sense. It got cold. People stayed inside. Air circulated. I got to be honest. I can't track. I can't find the pattern. I don't know. So all I can say is this. Do you agree with mandates or not? Because if you want to, fine. I get it. We don't know for sure. I am on the side of freedom. I think private businesses should be allowed to make their own rules. If you want to come into my store and we don't require masks, that risk is on you. And if people don't want to show up, then my business will be hurt. But if the government mandates masks, even when it makes literally no sense, like a restaurant, yeah, that's insane. And then people start engaging in insane behavior. mass formation psychosis. I just want to reiterate this. If you have a record store and you're like, everybody should be wearing a mask because you're going to be talking, maybe some people singing, and we don't want people spitting on everything, we got to sanitize it all. Okay, fine. I get it. I do. That makes sense to me. I might not want to shop at your store, but fine, that's your business. If you go to a restaurant and everybody is opening their pie holes and talking and not wearing masks, but when they stand up, stop talking, and are leaving, you make them wear a mask. I'm sorry, that is insane to me. This is the weirdest thing too. I've seen this over and over again. People walk into a restaurant wearing a mask. Then they say, have a seat. They take the mask off within 10 seconds. And then when they're done eating, they don't put the mask on. You know why? What are you going to do? Kick me out? I'm walking out the door. That's how I see it everywhere. It's ridiculous. You walk in and you're like, you can sit down and take the mask off. Why don't I just sit down and not waste a disposable mask? I don't know. It's not just AOC though. It's Rashida Tlaib. She was seen in August dancing at a wedding without a mask after she criticized Rand Paul. It's just the stupidest thing ever. Mask mandates are back in Frederick County and in Anne Arundel and Frederick counties as Maryland grapples with COVID-19. You know what? This was entirely predictable, and I said this was going to happen. I said when the holidays show up, people are going to go out and get tested in droves, and when they do, we'll see a surge in cases, and then when we do, people will say, it's time to lock everything down once again. In New York City, they're shutting down the Apple Store. So this is where we go. This is where we're going to be led, because we're being led by people who have no idea what they're talking about, no idea what's going on, and we're still by people like Newsom, Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, Rashida Tlaib, Gretchen Whitmer, and AOC. They don't believe what they preach. AOC will go out and party, and here are the photos. Let me pull up the photos. There's her at a diner I don't really care too much about, but here's her at a bar. Oh yeah, having a good old time, blowing kisses and waving, and everybody's cheering for her, and she's hugging and kissing. It's not just about not wearing the mask. It's that she goes down to Florida, no mask, and engages in the most overt, close contact social behavior you could think of while criticizing Ron DeSantis. For what? I'm just so sick of it. We got some crazy stories, man, about what's happening in this world. I mean, look, U.S. airlines canceling thousands of flights because people aren't showing up to work because they all got COVID, they said. Yeah, everybody went out and got tested for the holidays, and, maybe it's a good thing. COVID sucks. It was really bad. I did not enjoy getting it. And Omicron is still really bad, but the official list of symptoms show that it's substantially more mild than previous strains. So maybe we're on the outs. Maybe it's finally winding down. But I'll tell you, my friends, the Democrat voter, they don't know or care about AOC. They didn't even know that Joe Biden said true and Anana Shabbat de pressure. Okay, and the context here is Lauren Boebert tweeted it, making fun of Biden, and the Democrat voter base was like, wow, she's so dumb. What does that word even mean? And it's like, I don't know. Joe Biden said it, but these people don't read the news. They don't watch the news. They don't know AOC is doing this stuff. Please share this with them. Now, the cognitive dissonance, the sunk cost fallacy, and mass formation psychosis may prevent them from grasping what is truly before their eyes, the hypocrisy of Democratic politicians. But we can try, I guess. I don't know, man. I think we're well beyond the recruiting phase. I think the people who choose to believe the lies will continue to choose to believe the lies. I don't know what you can say to them to wake them up. The other day, I found myself the #1 post on Reddit. Boy, was I surprised to see when I opened up my Reddit app, the first thing on all posts was a tweet from me and Hassan in a non sequitur response. And I thoroughly enjoy it. But there were people responding in the comments saying, Tim Pool he keeps defending Republicans. And I'm like, I have literally been saying the Republicans are trash for like a year and a half now. I've defended the Republicans for sure, many of them. I defend some of them, but it's like, these people don't watch my show. They get their news from memes, and they make statements about my political views that aren't actually my political views because it's all tribal cultism. And I believe it's the rule for the Democrats and the exception for the right. The right is a disparate group of different factions, many of whom don't even like each other. But the left is Not entirely a monolith. There are different factions of the left, but boy is the left mostly a monolith. They basically just march in lockstep with massive private corporations, mandating things, getting government mandates on private products, allowing private companies to control the commons, be it public space or big social platforms. It's just marching in lockstep with overtly authoritarian whatever. They don't know my own policies. They don't watch my show. So how do you break through to these people? I don't know. I think they revel in it. And the funny thing about the post that was on Reddit was me saying that the Holocaust Museum requiring your papers is the best way to explain to someone the definition of irony. That's called situational irony. It's basically like when something intended to do something does something different to amusing consequences or does the inverse. So like the example I like to give is a fire truck on fire. The thing that's supposed to put the fire out is now on fire. Or an ambulance that crashes into another ambulance and now the paramedics are both injured calling for an ambulance. Or the Holocaust Museum saying, in order to explain to you what papers, please means, we need your papers, please. And they don't understand that because they're in a cult. They want to be in a cult. They don't want to break free from a cult. The cult feels good. And AOC is a cult leader. And Donald Trump in many ways is as well. Yeah, Donald Trump is a nasty guy. Donald Trump represents the worst of American culture, absolutely. He's got a nasty mouth. But as much as people agree with that statement, they liked his policies. That's the funny thing. They'll say, why are people defending Trump? He's such a bad guy. It's like, well, don't look at me. I think Trump in many ways is a bad guy. I also think he's generous to those who work for him. And I think if you go up against him, he'll be a really nasty guy. And he says nasty things. And I think he represents the worst of American culture. But when it came to policy, he had a lot of similarities with Bernie Sanders. There's nuance here. But if you're in the cult, if you're following someone like AOC, you don't see the nuance. She lied about what happened on January 6th. I definitively approved that with the timeline breakdown where she claimed someone knocked on her door. And I'll give you the gist of it. So a cop knocks on her door and says, we got to go. And she goes, oh, no. It's, did they find me? She thought she was going to die. She was conflating two different moments, claiming that when the insurrection, as they call it, happened and people stormed the Capitol, she was worried they finally made it to her door. But at the time, when the police officer knocked on her door, no one had even gotten to the front of the Capitol building. She conflated the story. She mixed up the timelines for a narrative. But if you don't read outside the bubble and you're in the cult or you want to be in the cult, you'll believe she was being honest. But that's what she is. She is the worst of the worst. She really is the worst. You get the point. I don't care to talk about just AOC as an individual. The greater idea here is that among the Democratic establishment, they all do this. They say one thing and do another. I don't like the Republicans. Mitch McConnell, I think, is absolutely awful. I don't care for 90% of their platform, their policies, and their platform. Maybe something will change if people vote in the primaries and get rid of them. Maybe that's true for Democrats as well, but they love AOC. So I care not for the cult. I don't want to have anything to do with it, and I don't care what cult members call me. They may as well be a different country at this point, and that's where things start getting real scary. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.